What's up, everyone? I'm Gordon, and this is Watching Code Office Hours Session 94. So the purpose of these office hours, if you're new, is it's just to help you get through the material as you're learning. So if you're going through Practical JavaScript or if you're going through Premium and you have any questions about anything, you can just ask me directly. So the problem I've just seen is that a lot of students that are learning on their own, especially with online courses, don't have a place to go to help. So for Watching Code, this is that place. So a couple of logistics, and then we'll get started. So I'll share my screen.
Yep. My mic is picking up the TV a little bit. I'm out here where I was sit. Just a little loud, yeah. All right, thanks.
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, you froze out.
Yeah, so when I shared my screen on Google Hangouts, it just blew up. So Google, get your shit together. Let me try that again. Hopefully it works this time. Okay, cool. So, so sorry about that. Technical difficulties, bugs. So first, if you have a question, you want to call in, like the students below have done. And to do that, if you're not here already, there's a link in the document right here. If you click on that, you'll get right into this Google Hangout. And the document, if you're watching on the YouTube live stream, you can get to this document if you look right below the video. You'll get to this document. Just a quick announcement about new stuff. So there's a new video in the underscore series. This is part 8 of the underscore series, and I can show you real quick. This one, if you've been following along and you're at the end of the content, it's about the event listeners in the main.js file. So that was just added maybe 2 or 3 days ago. So that's the new stuff for this week. And if you haven't yet, it's been a while since I released this, but please watch the videos in Practical JavaScript, the ones about functions and variables. So that was not super new, but came out maybe in the last 2 weeks or so. So if you haven't watched those, you should catch up on that as well. So that's all I have. From here, we'll just go into questions. Let's start with Andrew.
Hey, Gordon.
Hey.
As for questions, I am kind of stuck on something, but I just reached that last night. It's in the video check currency format. It's actually a math question. I have a poor background in mathematics. My main skill is fractions just because of my work. But I actually was trying to figure out briefly how to get power of something, the power of, but I'm not even sure if this is important to the course. If you were just explaining it, just for understanding, or if I should actually know it.
So what's the specific question?
It is on. I could even show quickly on the screen if you want.
Yes, please.
Your face will show up. There we go. This right here, in where is it? Here we go. Check currency format. You go through this section, and it's in mathematics, and it's to the power of. But there was the final numbers. Like I think you put in 1,000,000 and it showed all the power ofs, but I wasn't actually sure how to calculate this in order to get to it because I just don't know. But perhaps that's easily gained with more time and just practicing with mathematics or something like that.
The point wasn't for you to actually calculate those. So go back to so do something simple. So do like 1. Right. And so here you can see that wait, can you scroll up?
Mm-hmm.
The exponent. So when n equals 1, you have 1 plus 2 to the 0. And then put in 2. One plus 2 to the 1.
I opened this because I just followed the link that you had open, but yours did look a bit different than this. It didn't have this up here, and it did like it did to 2 to the power of this plus 2 to the power of this plus 2 to the power of this. And
Yeah, I'm trying to. Can you go back to that? Because I don't think we're. I think that one's more helpful. So hit toggle details.
Toggle details.
Click toggle details.
Sorry, where's
it's right below 2? The number 2 at the top of the page.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Go down. Yeah. So okay. So scroll down. So where n equals 2 to 1. Yeah. So the important thing I wanted to mention, I think when I was looking at it, it was like this, right?
Somewhat, yeah. Except well, I guess there was more to do. Okay.
So if you do type in 1 at the top now. So here you can really start with the basic examples, right? So 1 in binary is 2 to the 0, and then 2 in binary is 2 to the 1. So type in 2. And then 3, type in 3. Is you see 2 to the 1 plus 2 to the 0, and then 4 is 2 to the 1 plus 2 to the 1, right? Or 2 to the 2, yep. And so the whole point is that you build all these whole numbers through a combination of powers of 2. So that was the whole point.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the main idea. So that's all I wanted to show you.
Okay.
If you have fractions, you're building up fractional portions of a number by 1 divided by powers of 2. Right? So you're adding a bunch of 1 divided by powers of 2, but the only thing you have to work with essentially are these powers of 2. Either you're adding the powers of 2 together, or you're dividing 1 by powers of 2. And so if you do type in 0.5, for example. Yeah, so when you have fractionals, you have a negative exponent, which is just 1 over the 2 to the 1.
Okay.
So does this part make sense? The most important thing is this stuff makes sense.
To be honest, maybe it's just because somewhat weak mathematics. It kind of well, my head says that since this is 1, technically, like if I entered 1, it would just be 2 to the power 1. And you take that and half 1 would be 0.5, or in other words, here.
No. So the whole point is that if you have a number that is less than 1, so you have a fractional, basically a portion of 1, So a fractional number. You can't add up 2 to the positive. You can't add up like 2 to the 0 and 2 to the 1 and so on, because you're just gonna get numbers bigger than 1.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense. Yeah.
so you have to take 1 and then divide it by powers of 2. Right? And so
Oh.
and that's how the computer gets fractional numbers.
Oh, okay. That.
Right?
Yeah, I see something there. Yeah, I get
And
it.
the whole point is that there are only certain numbers that the computer can perfectly represent. One
Yeah,
half is one of them. I went through a couple of them. I can't remember them off the top of
you
my
went
head.
like, I think something like this, and it didn't
Point.
work properly.
Yeah. So this is it's trying to add up, right? You see all the 1 over 2 powers of 2.
Mhm.
It's trying to add up all these little bits to kind of add up to 0.614 and get close to it, but it's not going to perfectly be 0.614. But if you had something like 0.25, that can be 1 over 2 squared, right? So do 0.25.
Yeah.
And right, so that's a perfect representation. And,
Okay.
and so the whole point is that the computer is not perfect at representing decimals.
So the
And
point wasn't to get really good at this, but rather just to represent that it wasn't, and then it needed a roundabout fix for that.
right, so the
Okay.
point was just to show you that 0.25 can be perfectly represented. 1/2 can be perfectly represented. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 can be perfectly represented. Fractions, not so much. You very quickly run into numbers that need to be estimated, like 0.614, or almost all fractions can't be really estimated perfectly. Like, for example, 0.3. It's not obvious to me if it can be or not. Yeah, it's probably not. So you see, it's like trying to get really close. But you know, if you do the math and you just do like 1 over 2 plus 2, right? Then so you have 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 to the 0 plus 2 to the 0. That would be 1/2, right? And so 1/2 can be represented. If you have 1 over 2 squared, then that's 1/4, right?
Yeah.
1 over 2 to the 3rd would be 1/8, which is like 0.125 or something. Right?
Yeah.
So type 0.125. Right. So 1 over 2 to the 3rd. So the whole point is there's actually quite a small number of decimals that can be represented perfectly. And so when the computer is trying to round a number, it's often rounding a number that is not what you think it is. It's not the exact amount that we think of, but it's an approximation. And because of that behavior, the rounding can sometimes work in unexpected ways.
Okay.
Right? And so the whole point is like, how do we get around that problem? Because in accounting JS, we had these clear issues where, like, I think 0.615 didn't round to 0.62. Remember that? I think that was one example.
Yes, because it went one case, it went down.
Yep.
Instead of up.
Exactly. So I think I talk more about the details in that video, but the whole point is like the reason, or the way that numbers are actually stored in memory is a limitation of numbers in JavaScript, and actually many other programming languages too. These are the technical term for what we're looking at is called floats. It's because the decimal floats around, and the like the dot will float around when you change the values. But because of that, you have some quirks with rounding. So
Okay.
that's it. And you also have some quirks with super large numbers as well. I think because you get a certain number of space to represent a number, and A really large number just doesn't, you you can run out of space and you can't
So many
represent.
transistors or whatever that it can't possibly count that high as on a computer or
No,
something.
it just doesn't have enough memory to store all the digits. So it gets something close.
Okay.
I think did I also give you the link to the video that goes through this app that we're looking at now?
I made it 3/4 of the way through. Oh, you mean in here? I made it 3/4 of the way through the video. And then that was all I could get done that night. And
Yeah.
I just, it was kind of nagging on my head the whole day.
But there's a whole video that goes through this stuff, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it.
Oh, do you? Okay, it's probably
Yeah.
at the end then.
So just watch it through.
Okay. Perfect. I just want to know if that was something I had to know. Actually,
Well, I think
want to know more
you definitely need to know exponents.
Okay.
And so the really the only thing you need to know is exponents, both positive and negative, and it should take 20-30 minutes to refresh max. I think it's pretty simple arithmetic.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Andrew. Let's move to Brandon.
Hi, Gordon and company. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Good. I didn't think I'd have a question, but I was starting the digestion techniques for the second section of the premium watching code. And so I started going through practical JavaScript kind of as a review again, which is nice. I really like to review things. But when I got to the new section you had for explaining scope, I thought that was really good. And then actually I just got done looking at the interlude on data types. And it talks about the difference between like how a variable, you can change the value very easily versus an object has a memory address. And you've got some kind of tricky test questions that you have that that you run by people. But what I found, and I don't know, it might be a question, but, and granted, I was actually riding my bike trainer when I was watching this video 30 minutes ago that you had. Granted, I was reviewing it, but it dawned on me that for me, it made a lot of sense to think of objects as literally like shipping containers. So if I could share my screen just to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about, I'll do that real quick. So this is like a great big ship, right? And I know Gordon lives in the Bay Area, so if you are going like across the East Bay Bridge and look over to Oakland, you see all these huge, ships with these big shipping containers. And then let's see, this might be a good example. Each shipping container is going to have a number on it, right? So if you're in the shipping yard and you're dealing with these big ships, I don't think you care too much about the necessarily the contents. I think you care more about the individual containers. And long story short, you're using houses with addresses to explain in the video, which was really good. But as soon as I started mentally thinking of containers, and then the containers having unique numbers, unique identifiers, the way that you'd have to manage like a shipyard, I was able to, just do the test questions no problem in my head, which usually you need to write them down. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just double checking to make sure that thought process is going in the right direction. So.
Yeah, I think that model works well too. It's like, I mean, it's almost like an address for a shipping container rather than a house. It's a very similar idea.
Cool. And I don't really have any more questions. I think, you just kind of stay with the material. Actually, I've seen on the Slack channel, Andrew's encouraged a few people to just continue watching your videos. And he's right, because every time, if you actually will listen, there's almost always going to be the answer if you just stay with the videos. But I'm probably like everybody, I got a lot of other things going on in my mind. So usually you just have to either rewatch the video or be patient, and it'll come along later. And that's just the way it goes. But yeah, it's pretty much all there. And as I've mentioned to you, I do like kind of written materials sometimes. But as long as it's within the scope of what you're talking about, honestly, it's more reinforcement. And then I just have to self-check to make sure I stay on focus with the coursework, because you can go down a lot of rabbit holes, particularly in the world of development and software. So yeah, no other questions though. So thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm sure that may have helped other people that were maybe looking at that or thinking about objects as well. So yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Brandon. Let's move to Yagna.
Hey. No questions as such today, Gordon. Just want to give a brief update. Been going through the Accounting.js material in the last 1 week. And I'm at the recursion videos at this point, and I completed the last recursion video today. And yeah, it was really helpful doing the mapping using recursion. It was really, yeah, the video that you showed really helped me to kind of understand each and every step of it and see the return value of each function call. And I think I'll need to spend a little more time there to kind of wrap my head around. And you suggested using, instead of using the native map, I can use my own map implementation and see if I can understand that process. So I'll kind of do that. And yeah, I think I don't have any doubts as such, going really well. Just plan to continue this momentum and consistency across the next couple of videos, and yeah, get this Accounting.js completed. Yep, no questions, but thank you.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, Yagna. A. Rosenfeld. We can't hear you.
Hi, sorry, I should change that. My name's Alex.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah, good to meet you, Gordon. Thanks. I'm just starting with the course, and it's been really great. I just had a kind of a brief overview question. I'm in the sort of second section, really digging, like figuring out how to read code, and because I'm coming from basically total beginner to all this. So my question is, you using the debugger in the console. I just wondered if there was a specific way to know. Sometimes you step over lines and sometimes you step into them. And I don't know if you could maybe briefly just talk about that, how to choose when and to do either or.
What is from your observations and going through stuff on your own, what would you guess is, like, how have you been what ideas have you been operating under, I guess?
Yeah, I've been essentially stepping into everything just because I guess I wanted to know as much as possible. And clearly, and then you can kind of figure out sometimes, oh, I didn't really need to be in that. But I didn't know if there was sort of an easier way or a more like a better way to approach it then.
Yep. I can talk about how I learned how to do it, and then I'll try to extract any conclusions that we can make. But the way I learned how to do it is every single opportunity you do both, and just think about the differences. And so, for example, right, sometimes you step into something you don't want to step into. Sometimes, and then you realize you want to step over it. Another case, you might step over something and then realize, oh crap, I wanted to go into it. Right. And then just through that process, you'll usually find the right thing to do. And I guess if you think about it, that's the same process you use to figure out what to do as well. Because it really depends on what you're trying. It really depends on your objective, which changes depending on who you are and what it is you're trying to do. And I can't um guess what that is.
Right.
But I think it really is that simple. So
Okay.
you know, for example, I think where you are right now is probably a place where, and perhaps this is something that happens in earlier on in your learning, is that you don't realize that there's a function even there in that line to step into.
Right.
Right. So there's some lines where you can step into, but there's actually no function to step into. And so it's essentially the same thing as step over. And that's another really good case where it's good to see, is there any difference between step over and step into? Because I think that's where a lot of people get screwed up. They just don't realize that there's a function call there, and then they go into it and they didn't expect that to happen. So with the reading series where you're at right now, I imagine that's happening with, I don't know, there's a jQuery call in there and you didn't really realize it, right? And then you hit step into, not thinking that you would actually go into that function, right? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so again, it comes back to, well, how do I learn this stuff? It's just to A/B test everything.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's a resource that's going to tell you when to step over or step into. You just have to kind of experiment and observe what's happening, and then you'll know.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. How are things going in general? Like, how long ago did you just sign up for Premium?
Yeah, I just signed up like a couple weeks ago. I was my background is a classical musician, but I kind of just started learning code on my own like back in October, or just diving into it. So yeah, I found your method of going through everything super helpful and makes a lot of sense logically for me in thinking about stuff. I checked out a bunch of other tutorials and sort of just felt like tutorials. I really appreciate your approach to everything. So
yeah, I mean, I just basically just try as much as I can not to just try to explain how I figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? And so the whole point is so you can become independent and realize that I actually don't know anything. I just have a very small set of like, I'm good at running experiments. And if you get good at that too, then you'll be great.
Yeah, great. And I think knowing what experiments to run, I guess that's then the next step.
Yeah, but it's never something that, you don't know this or you don't know that. That doesn't matter, really. But it's like, can you figure it out? Right. What kind of classical music do you do?
I played the French horn.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
I played very terribly in high school or middle school.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I probably just destroyed the instrument and spit into it mostly.
That's great.
Yeah, but my sister is a classical pianist.
Awesome.
So I think one thing that is interesting about musicians is I think most people, normal people, and I put myself into this category, we don't know what it's like to actually focus on something and do it like for a couple hours. But all musicians seem to know how to do that. And that's pretty helpful for things like coding.
For sure.
So I think you have an unfair advantage.
The math, I don't have the math in my background, so that's a little more, get a refresh on that. But
yeah, it's mostly just arithmetic, really. So.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Cool. Well, it's cool to meet you, Alex. Thanks for dropping by. Let's go to Joe. What's up, Joe?
Not much. I'm good. Yeah, I pretty much finished rewriting. I guess I did a mechanical replication of the app with just vanilla JS for the reading section. So I feel pretty confident. I actually think it was like that particular section when I wrote everything out, like was just the most illuminating, because I got to spend so much time, like I read so much code when I was doing it, trying to figure out how to get it from the whole jQuery handlebars mix to just being pure JavaScript. And I replicated everything. So I'm not even sure it's how everyone would do everything. But yeah, I pretty much got that done. And I don't know, I feel really good about reading. I definitely got to read a lot and like have to really like make myself like pay attention and figure it out to get it to work for in the code. So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna move to the testing section at this point. The only, I mean, there's the last part that there's one part I have to do, which is I guess doing the director with or the router. Sorry, the router for the app. I haven't done that with the vanilla. So that's the last, everything else though, every single feature is in there except for the router. So I have to put the router in and then I'm going to move to the testing section. And I would just say like, if anyone goes to the reading section and they do the N-1 feature and they feel like a little rocky, like doing everything, like just rewriting it all in Vanilla.js is like, it's super good. I feel really good about the reading section after having done that for sure.
Awesome. That's really cool. Nice work, Joe. That's like Agnes said. Good job, Joseph. Good job! Exclamation point. I'd be more animated if I was that kind of person. With the Director.js, it will be kind of a jump to try to do that on your own.
It seems like it. I was looking at it and it looked like it is actually a little bit beyond the reading section.
Yeah,
so.
It is, and perhaps you might want to save that for later and just stick with Director.js. After you go to the underscore series,
okay,
you will know how to do that stuff for sure.
Okay.
But that's quite a ways off. Basically, what you are missing, and I haven't taught at this point yet, and that's why we just use Director.js, is how do you manipulate the URL and essentially, right? How do you?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, and I found myself going way outside of the scope of the reading section. So, okay, yeah, I think I'll do that. I'll skip ahead and then I'll come back and add it for practice.
Okay.
If I feel like I need more practice on whatever it is. So, but other than that, I've replicated every single feature with code I wrote from start to finish, and it was a really good experience. Like wow.
How frustrating was it?
You know, I enjoyed doing it. I was having fun doing it because I don't know. I was just, it's like every time I come up to something that I can't figure out, I would just start. I basically used all the prototypes, or all the resources we started to look at. So there's like the API documentation and the what is it? I guess the prototypes and stuff like that. And then I even to get it to completely work, I had to go into the CSS too a little bit. I had to figure out how to position everything and so on and so forth. So it actually looks like it doesn't look the same. It's not nice where it's got the 3 sheets and then it comes down with boxes, but it's just other than that, it's a perfect mechanical replication. I can the double click, the escape to abort, I set it up so that when you hit enter and there's nothing in it, when there's no value, I'm pretty sure it's a perfect replication. The only thing that it doesn't do is when you scroll over the X, it doesn't, the X doesn't disappear because of its CSS, and it was a little more CSS than I wanted to get into, because I actually did it, but it only worked if you were directly over the X, whereas in the app, if you scroll over the LI, the X appears. So that was a little bit tricky, and I kind of just let that one go. But minus like a few things with the CSS, I think it's a perfect mechanical replication. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about having done
You
that.
should share it in Slack.
Sure, for sure.
Yep. So just so that people can check it out, and maybe it'll motivate some other people too.
Okay, I will. I'll do that. I should. I think I made an effort to keep the code pretty clean. As
now
I
you're
was,
worried about getting embarrassed.
I don't know. It doesn't look too terrible. I'm sure I missed some semicolons, but I think all the indentation is good, and then there might be some like spaces between brackets that's extra because like I added something then deleted it but didn't delete space. So I think aside from white space and maybe a few missing semicolons, the indentation's pretty good and all that good stuff. So I put like a good solid like effort into getting it to work. So
Man, I'm sure it's great.
it kind of gave me code for sure.
Okay, cool. How about this? What you can do is, it sounds like you're a little self-conscious about the style, Joe.
Share the code, I guess.
What you can do is, I'm sharing my screen right now. Just go to jshint.com and then just paste it in, and paste your code in, and so you can see like if you add a semicolon where it's not supposed to be, it will tell you line 14 unnecessary semicolon, right?
Okay.
If you remove a semicolon in 16, it will say missing semicolon, and then you don't have to be self-conscious about that because you won't have
Paste all my code into this, and then I can just go through it and make all the corrections that I need to.
It will tell you what to do.
Okay, cool, for sure.
Okay, cool. So that'll be good practice, I think.
Okay.
All right. Last, Joe, do you have anything else?
That's pretty much it. I'm gonna start testing pretty much tomorrow. The testing series.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. This is great work. All right. So last we got Jason. What's up, Jason?
Hey, Gordon.
Hey. What have you been up to?
Nothing much. Same old.
Have you been able to get back into the content?
No, today I was thinking about it. I always tell you I'm thinking about it. Broken record, but I'm still thinking about it.
All right. Okay. Well, so do you want to just stick around for the open discussion then?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Cool. It's good to see you, Jason. Does anyone have any last questions before I end the broadcast? Okay, well, so how it works is usually we're ending a little bit early today. That's okay. But after the broadcast ends, we usually continue the discussion in the Hangout. So this part it's still in the video chat, but it's not broadcasted and it's not recorded on YouTube. So you can join us for that chat if you'd like. It usually tends to be a little bit more casual. Students talk to each other and are less bashful and shy. So if you want to join us for that, then you'll want to call into the Hangout now, because there are no guarantees about how long we'll stick around. So if you're watching and you want to join, please do that. If you're just if you're gonna head out now, then thanks a lot for coming on, and I hope it was helpful. If you have any feedback for me, you can send it to me at gordon@watchingcode.com, and I'd love to hear from you. So thanks everyone, and see you next week.